So, one last time, the jailer is the key. Kill her, and you will be free.
Hey everybody, it's Red Panda Gamer here for a special video. Today I wanted to talk about a game I've been spending my whole day with, a game I actually just completed. It's called Furi, or Furi. I'm not actually sure. I tweeted a picture of the game out, and my girlfriend texted me, she's like, "Are you playing a game about furries?" And I said no, but then she modified the tweet I posted to make it look like I was. So if you see that anywhere on the internet, it's not true. And Alicia, that's not funny. The whole point of the game Furi, is that you are a prisoner who just escaped, and you are going through a chain of bosses to get your freedom. There's a lot of vagueness to the game. You're not really sure who you are, what you did, or why you're escaping. All you know is that you're a badass with a sword and a gun, and a weird rabbit person that may or may not be real, may or may not be a furry, and may or may not be Rovio or Ravio. Is it Rovio or Ravio from Mario or Zelda? I think more recently Zelda. And you're going through these beautiful scenic areas, and honestly, this game has cinematography that I haven't seen from a video game, if not in a long time, maybe never. Journey was probably the closest game that had this like wide sweeping, beautiful cinematography. And the main reason the cinematography works so well is because you're just simply walking from one door to the next to fight your next boss, and that allows for the developers to do some interesting angles, and there are some gorgeous shots in this game, and really it just feels like they're showing off the whole time. It reminds me of when I went to school for television production or film production, and they're like, you never do a shot, without a reason. And it looks cool isn't a good enough reason. And I think this game is a testament to the fact that a shot can just look cool, and that's totally good enough for me. But anyway, this game is super gorgeous. There is not a lot going on in between boss fights. It's a lot of simple walk from point A to point B, and then you have your rabbit friend or foe, Donnie Darko, telling you a little bit of the background. The way I kind of assumed it is your inner brain going crazy, and you kind of have this rabbit that's a figment of your imagination. A lot like Donnie Darko, though I feel like Donnie Darko was trying to imply that Frank, I think is the rabbit's name, was real. It's not really important. There is some really interesting and powerful dialogue throughout this game, which is usually delivered well. Sometimes voice acting can be really shoddy, but that's okay.
Welcome, stranger. I have been looking forward to this moment.
Takashi Okazaki is the one that did the art for this game, and while that name might not sound familiar to most of you, the style probably looks familiar, and that's because it's the same artist that did Afro Samurai. And I was a pretty big fan of Afro Samurai. I always liked the idea of Japanese anime that kind of married Western culture with a Japanese style. And I feel like that show did it really, really well, especially with Samuel L. Jackson's voiceover. But it is beautiful art, and I'm sure with a lot of people seeing how much of a train wreck that most recent Afro Samurai, I was gonna say Samurai Jack, that most recent Afro Samurai game was, there's probably some hesitance, which is unfortunate because this game from top to bottom is pretty much flawless. The controls are completely tuned, which is what you want for a game that really stresses difficult boss battles. And when all you have are just boss battles, you really need those controls to be tight, otherwise people are going to notice. And between shooting your gun or countering and parrying attacks or dashing around the map, those all work splendidly. And Takashi's art style really gives this whole game a really, really deep feeling that I didn't expect to get from it. When I heard it was just like, 9 boss fights and you go through them and the story's a little weird, I was like, well, this game probably won't feel like a realized world like other games that have done the boss battle only, like most recently Titan Souls, which I absolutely loved, which took a lot of inspiration from not only Dark Souls, but mostly Shadow of Colossus. That game really did structure and build a beautiful world of believability where you're like, man, I kind of just want to explore this world. I don't really even need to fight anything. And this game actually does that really well, and I think a lot of that has to do with Takashi because everything feels so stylistic and everything has a reason, and while you don't necessarily get the full understanding of what's happening, you almost don't need it because what you make up in your own head based on the art you see is something I don't really want to give up. It's really great when you play a video game and you kind of get to make up the story yourself or speculate what was happening. And there is a secret ending, and I don't want to say too much about it, but there is a secret ending, and it's not really much of a secret. It's kind of just, if you keep exploring towards the end, you will find something, and you will find out like a huge chunk of the story. And I'm kind of bummed that they kept that relegated to a kind of secret ending, because I know that if it was me and I didn't find it, I would have been really disappointed. But yeah, so it does have some closure, but ultimately the world that you coexist in with these other guardians, which I haven't really even gotten into, feels like a real tangible place thanks to Takashi's art. I hope people don't see the similarities between Furi, and the Afro Samurai game that was terrible and taken off of Steam and no one got refunds, and think, oh, I don't want to touch that. So the big thing about Furi is the music. The music is honestly as great for your ears as the visuals are for your eyes. I know this soundtrack is done by a couple of people, and it definitely gives a reminder of Hotline Miami, where you have all of these great musicians collaborating for one single game, and somehow, against all odds, creating a really competent soundtrack that really oozes style. In this, you have two main people. You have two main composers for this soundtrack, and then a couple of other people sprinkled in. But those are Carpenter Brute and Toxic Avenger. They honestly, the tracks on this are so good, and I was still having moments towards the end of the game where like that like synth would kick in, and it's just like, oh shit, something's about to go down, and like you actually get excited, and that's what music should do in a game. And it matches the visual style perfectly. There's a lot of like purples and pinks and fluorescence, and there's one fight in particular where it's like orange and red and turquoise, and it just looks beautiful. Absolutely beautiful, and the music for it is perfect, and that fight is really good. You fight an old man that can control time, and he makes all of these like fourth wall breaking comments about like starting over and getting a game over, like making allusions to the fact that it's a video game. And there's a couple of moments in here where it does that, and I didn't really expect that from this game. Beyond that, the game does take itself pretty seriously, and maybe a little too seriously. I was not looking for comedy, obviously, but I was looking for a little bit of like situational humor. You know, there's a couple things here and there where it's like, oh, this guy you're having a really serious sword fight with all of a sudden grabs a paddle and fights you with it, and that was kind of like not funny, but like still an interesting moment. Some of the bosses, like they are really generic, and they take themselves super seriously. And the rabbit that follows you around, he has some really like high concept philosophy, like poetry, like some of the things he says you hear and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna turn the music up and forget that you said that. I mean, it all adds to the overall vibe and narrative of the game, but at times the narrative does feel like the weakest part about it. What are you doing? So I'm having a lot of problems here between my cat knocking over the light, me having trouble focusing this camera. I want to wrap this up on Furi. I do think it's a good game. I think the presentation as a whole is like top notch. There are a couple graphical glitches, which is common for like an indie game going for 3D style. I just don't think there's any avoiding it. But beyond that, I think that the music and the visuals and the cinematography really are huge. You know, you are walking through pretty basic areas, and you could just literally push A to let it walk for you. And I did that every time because I just wanted to watch. I just wanted to see the way they wanted it to look, the pace it had with the music and the narration. Like, all of that really was great, and I didn't really want to interrupt it. But, you know, not as many people will be affected by that. You know, some people are like, well, I want 30 bosses. Like, instead of giving me 9 bosses with a bunch of, like, cool shots in between, just give me 30 bosses where I just go, boom, boom, boom. And I don't really like that. I like that this was, like, kind of a quick burn. It's always nice to be able to sit down and finish a game, unlike, you know, a Fallout 4 or a Witcher 3, where you are just chipping away at it for weeks, especially when you have a full-time job. So it is nice to be able to get through a game. Is it worth $25? It depends on the type of person you are. If you're the kind of person that's going to want to play through this multiple times, you know, first maybe through the normal mode, and then there's the hard mode, and then trying to beat it again without taking a hit. Like, there are tons of trophies and achievements for this game, and I barely got any of them. But the right person, this game is perfect for them. And that might be you, that might be Crazy Mike. There are a lot of people who absolutely love this game, and I don't know if I'd go so far to say I absolutely love it. It's not quite my cup of tea. I get really frustrated when it comes to shoot 'em ups because I don't have the eye-hand coordination for dodging very well. While it's not perfect for me, it's definitely perfect for someone. It was perfect for me in this instance because it was free on PlayStation Plus. I probably would have paid $10, $15 for it, maybe even 20, but 25 just does seem steep, and I don't want to be the type of person that's like, oh, it's gotta be, you know, it's not even about how long the game is. Like, I played Gone Home. I loved Gone Home. It's not about how long the game is, it is the fact that there's just elements of that game that I wouldn't want to pay that much for to put myself through. Though overall, I do recommend it, especially if you love the visual aesthetic, if you like the music. If you just want the music, I mean, the soundtrack is available on Bandcamp. There's a beautiful vinyl pressing. It's like a double LP of like blue and pink vinyls for £35, which I don't know what that equates right now, especially with everything weird going on in Europe. I don't know if that actually changes yet. I don't know how that works. I went to art school, reviewing video games. But overall, I do highly recommend Furi to the type of person that was into this type of game. I'm glad I got to play it for you, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. I'm going to do my best to cut it down so it's not so long. I'm hoping to do more of these style of videos rather than just Let's Plays, because A, I don't have time for Let's Plays. It's way too much editing, way too much uploading. You know, I would much rather do like one video a week that's like a top 5, top 10, a review of a new game, an old game. It's just way easier for me working a full-time job and then just trying to enjoy myself outside of it. It's really hard to stay up to date with YouTube, and I know a lot of people have been frustrated with that, so I'm going to try to do more videos like this. It's just kind of nice for me to be able to sit here and kind of go through my feelings about a game or anything. But did you try the game out, Furi? If you did, be sure to comment down below. Even if you haven't tried it, maybe you watched the trailer, you listened to the soundtrack a bit on Bandcamp, which I will link down below. What did you think of the music? What do you think of the style? Do you like Afro Samurai? Oh, probably. Let me know if you plan on picking this game up, or if you beat the game, let me know which boss you had the most trouble with. For me, it was the one-on-one ninja battle. That shit kicked my ass. I had to switch it to easy mode, which made it way too easy. But anyway, that is my review gameplay of Furi. I hope you all enjoyed it. I will see you in the next one. Let me know if there's any games coming out soon that you would like my perspective on. I would be more than happy to give it a look. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.